Tonight's Cub game was about as exciting and as fun as getting a root canal. We talk about it next.
You are Locked On Cubs, your daily Chicago Cubs podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Cubs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Sam Olver. I'm a lifelong fan, taking my passion into a discussion with you on all things Cubs. Thanks for being part of the show and making Locked On Cubs your first listen today. And the best way you can help us grow the show is to listen every day, like the video, and give us a comment below. Coming up, we talk about the trade deadline, what moves the Cubs need to make, some issues with the trade deadline and the market. We're going to go around the league and talk about it, that if the season ended today, who would the Cubs be playing? What would be the situation playoff-wise? And see where the standings are at. But we start out in Minnesota for what was one of those games that felt doomed before it even started. Sam, how can it feel doomed before it even started? What are you talking about? I'll tell you what I'm talking about. Those of you know I am an overthinker. It's probably the worst thing that I do in life. It's my worst trait. I constantly overthink on a minute-by-minute basis. And a lot of times I overthink betting lines. I look on FanDuel often, and I just didn't like how the Cubs line – this felt like a great matchup on paper. Woods Richardson really struggles against lefties. They hit 306 against him coming in it tonight. Showed on the mound – minus 150, 155 is what I was expecting. It opened at 150. Then it went down to 145, then 140, then 135, then 130. I think it closed at 130 or 135. My point is, whenever that happens, it just gives me a bad feeling. So I went in there a little bit pessimistic. Before I could blink, it was 2-0 Minnesota. And, the rest kind of went the way you thought it was going to go. Now, we're going to talk about Shota more in detail here in a bit, but credit him for finding a way. I'm not sure how, but for finding a way to go 6 innings, 2 earned. If you told me that before the game, I would have taken that because I expected the Cubs to do serious damage against Woods Richardson, but they weren't able to. He went 5 shutout, and I think the only reason he stopped after 5 and just 61 pitches is because I think the Twins and Baldelli were like, man, we are so lucky that he was able to get through 5 against Tucker and Pete and Bush. He didn't want Woods Richardson to face those guys a third time, and then the Twins bullpen came in and did a good job. They have a pretty good bullpen for the most part, especially with Jackson and Duran. But the Cubs had a couple opportunities. One of them fell to Dansby, so you know how that went. The big opportunity, though, the one that felt like was the big chance for the Cubs, came in the top of the 8th. They had 2 on, nobody out. Really nice at bat by Ian to get a hit off of Jax. And then a phenomenal 0-2 to 4-2 AB from Kyle Tucker. 2 on, no out. Seiya strikes out. Pete strikes out. And then Michael Bush hits a rocket right at the right fielder. And then Porter Hodge comes in the game and gives up 6 runs in 1/3 of an inning. The Porter Hodge thing, I don't want to spend too much time on it because we've already talked about it. The Cubs obviously knew something with Porter because the fact that he came in off this injury and they publicly was like, hey, he's going to be in low leverage duty here for a while. He's still not right. And then he just had this kind of meltdown inning. Something's off there. I don't know if it's got to be resolved in AAA or not, but if you bring him in, look, I understand 2-0 in manager world is a low leverage situation. But it can't be like this Genesis Cabrera, Porter Hodge, where when those guys come in the game, you're just punting the game. You need production there a little bit. And I'm shocked. I really thought Hodge, he didn't have a great spring. I was concerned coming into the year, but then he showed some flashes. I particularly remember that game against the Dodgers in extra innings where he shut them down, where you're like, hey, this guy's got the best stuff on the team. He's still the closer. And then he has the oblique injury. And now, it just shows you the volatility with these relievers and why the Cubs definitely need another one, because you never know when a guy gets hurt or when a guy's just going to have one bad outing and then it steamrolls. I'm really curious to hopefully tomorrow see Brad Keller and a bounce back outing from him, because it's just a really complicated job. Like I said, I compare it to field goal kickers, man. You're rolling, and then you have that one that goes off the post. It starts to mess with you mentally. You miss a couple in a row, and here you go. So that was really bad for Hodge. But like I said, the story of this game was the offense. I'm just going to chalk it up to a bad night. We'll see how it goes tomorrow against another high ERA righty that the Cubs you would think would be able to score a lot of runs off of. I thought Bush had good swings. I thought Tucker had really good ABs. Outside of that, it was a really rough day for Seiya, a really rough day for Pete, and just not a whole lot there. Justin Turner hit his 200th career home run in junk time there in the top of the ninth inning, but for the most part, it was a really, really quiet and, like I said, a very surprisingly quiet night for the offense. I mean, this matchup to me screamed big night, and if you told me the Cubs were going to lose, I wouldn't have been shocked, but I would have thought it would have been, something like 8-5, 8-6, and Shota really struggled. Speaking of Shota, he didn't struggle in terms of his box score and his line, but I will say the Shota that you're seeing right now is not the guy that we saw last year. Now, you might be saying, well, Sam, give him some time. He's coming back from an injury. He didn't look like it before his injury either, and yet the numbers are still the same. And I think that's a testament to how good of a pitcher Imanaga is, how smart he is, how he's able to adjust in game. But I have concerns. I really do. 6 innings today, 2 earned, 1 K. Even JD said it felt like one of those games where it was surprising he was able to get out of there. A lot of fly balls to the track, a lot of hard hit balls, but that's part of Shota's game. What isn't part of his game is the lack of whiffs, the lack of strikeouts. Last year, he struck out 174 guys and 173 in a third. And now this year, I mean, it is really fallen. I mean, it's you knew it would fall a little bit, but now it's really falling to the point where you're a little bit concerned. He has 42 strikeouts in 61 innings. And somebody that has the ball in the air as much as he does, unless the wind's howling in at Wrigley, I don't know how it's going to play, and I'm concerned about his starts. And I think maybe that's why the Cubs line was so weird today. Maybe somebody knew the Cubs weren't going to hit. I don't know, but I fear him going to Yankee Stadium with the way he's pitching right now. And it feels almost sacrilegious to do this because he's been so good for the Cubs. And the Cubs usually win when he pitches, and he has a 2.88 ERA. He's still been awesome by those standards, but his expected ERA is in the mid 4s, and his FIP's up there. And I don't love the trends right now with him. And I think I said this last week. I've said this most of his starts. I've covered most of Shota's starts. They've mostly been on Tuesdays, and it always feels like you say the same thing. He didn't have his best stuff, but he grinded. Give him credit for that. But at some point I want to see him get back to being that guy, that nasty split, that elevated fastball, getting whiffs. I would love to see just like a good solid 7 innings, 8 or 9 K outing from him, just so I could feel comfortable that the stuff still plays like it did last year. Because right now it doesn't really feel like it is. But again, he did his job today. 6 innings, 2 earned. I'll take that every time, especially with the matchup the Cubs had. They just didn't hit. And of course, this loss feels a little bit extra, stings a little bit extra, because here come the Brewers again, 2 in a row against the injury-bugged Los Angeles Dodgers with their stud Mizorowski striking out 12 in just 6 innings of work. So, just feels like a dogfight right now. And the way the Cubs are going to have to, pull away in this dogfight is they're going to have to make some real moves at the trade deadline. I want to talk about that, and I want to talk about one move in particular that I think needs to get done. We're going to discuss that coming up next. This episode is brought to you by Open Phone. If you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you had a service emergency, like a burst pipe. If the first plumber didn't answer, did you wait? Nope. You just called the next one. That's why having a reliable business line is so important. And that's why you need Open Phone. Open Phone is the #1 business phone system that helps you streamline and scale customer communication, all from an app on your phone or computer. Did you juggle 2 phones just to keep business and personal calls separate? OpenPhone will solve that instantly. Your whole team can share one number and respond to customers like a shared inbox. No more who's handling this. So with OpenPhone is offering Locked On Show listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnMLB. That's openphone.com/LockedOnMLB. And if you have existing numbers with another service, OpenPhone will port them over at no extra charge. OpenPhone, no missed calls, no missed customers. We are back here on Locked On Cubs and some disturbing statistics that I have to share with you. Ian Happ now is 2 for his last 27, which is, I get it. He's going through one of his slow spells. Maybe I need to get him going. Let me just do it real quick. Ian, I need you now. It's time to get going, Ian. It's typically whenever I get on Ian, he responds, Ian, need a big night. Need a big night from you. But I would say the even more disturbing number is that Matt Shaw is now 1 for his last 22. And the eye test backs it up that Matt Shaw is not ready to hit at this level. He just isn't. And I believed in his bat probably more than most people. I thought his bat was ready to play right now. And it isn't. And it doesn't mean that I'm giving up on Matt Shaw, the future prospect, but I am ready to throw in the towel on Matt Shaw, the 2025 starting third baseman for the Chicago Cubs. It's time. This team, especially if Ian's not hitting, you can't just rely on Tucker, Bush, and Pete and Seiya every single game, especially versus lefties. Even though Bush had another really good at bat against the lefty today. You need that. You need a right-handed hitting third baseman that can hit lefties, whether it's Castro in Minnesota, who made a nice play in the outfield. He's more of a utility guy, whether it's Eugenio Suarez. We keep talking about pitchers. We keep talking about who the Cubs are going to target, which I'm about to do in a second. I genuinely think a third baseman is it's not number one. I get it, but it is near the top of the list because you can't have automatic outs in October unless you have a lineup like the Dodgers, which the Cubs at times do feel like they have, but it's just, this isn't even good for Matt Shaw's development. He's not getting any better here. I mean, just the way he takes pitches, if you're watching on YouTube, he'll take a pitch right down the middle like this, like he'll half swing at it because he's so in between. He doesn't know when to pull the trigger. He doesn't know when to take pitches. It will come. It will come for him. But you cannot rely that it's going to come in the second half of this season. There's too much riding on this. There's too much on the line. So let's talk about the options. Let's talk about the trade deadline. I thought David Kaplan did an outstanding job Monday on his recap podcast talking about the lack of options in the trade market because so many teams are still alive for that third wild card spot. And in order to get pitchers that you want, you may have to overpay. And there's teams like the Diamondbacks, the Red Sox, got teams that have all these really fun tradable players that could help the Cubs that just don't know if they're going to sell or not. And that's such a big reason why people say, why hasn't Jed made a move yet? Well, Jed can't make a move if nobody wants to do anything. People want to wait till the last minute. The last thing you want to do is be that GM that trades Eugenio Suarez and Merrill Kelly, and then your team rattles off 8 out of 10 games. And it's like, well, now we actually have a shot, but you traded some of our best guys. That's how it works. If you want to get on Jed, if you want to get on Carter, if you want to get on Tom, what you could say is maybe next year we don't have to wait till the deadline. It was obvious that we needed a starting pitcher in the offseason, and that was before we lost Steele for the season. And you waited, and it's like, all right, let's see where this is. We figured out at the deadline. Well, the lesson here is sometimes the deadline isn't as prosperous as you think because it's just one of those years that so many teams are in it. You look at the National League, nobody's running away with it. The Dodgers are in a huge funk right now. Granted, 80% of their team's injured, but the American League's totally up for grabs. Nobody's really dominating the sport. And so teams are hesitant. So it's going to be hard. There is no Chris Sale. There is going to be no Jacob deGrom. Sandy Alcantara was the prized possession, but he can't get anybody out anymore. So what do? Well, I've talked a lot about it on the show. I'll say it again. I think Edward Cabrera is the best arm on the market. As Justin Steele pointed out on the watch along, as we've pointed out on the show, that's going to probably be really difficult. It's going to be a tough trade to make because he's got so much cost control and he's cheap. So maybe that's an unrealistic option. I started to do my homework on Bubic, Chris Bubic of the Kansas City Royals. I actually like him better than Seth Lugo because the numbers just look better under the hood. The Baseball Savant page, the analytics. I know I'm Mr. Old School, but I still think there's a lot in these underlying stats and expected ERA and FIP and things like that. I mean, you go look at his page. I got it pulled up right here. His numbers on the year are excellent. He has a 2.36 ERA. Here's the number: 107 strikeouts in 103 innings. This team needs some bat missers. This team needs some guys that get whiffs. His expected earned run average is 3.02, so not much higher than what his actual ERA is, which tells me what he's doing is very sustainable, whereas a guy like Seth Lugo looks like his numbers are kind of fluky. This is a really good target. This would be the type of guy we've talked a lot about Merrill Kelly. I want to put Chris Bubic's name on everybody's radar. I think he could be a really, really good acquisition. I don't think the Royals are a very good baseball team. I think they would absolutely benefit from selling. The only question is if a team like the Royals sells, what does it do for them with the labor agreement and all that fun stuff? I don't know the answer to that. I want to pull up right now. They won today. So they're 45 and 48. So again, they're right on that threshold of like, should we sell? Should we not? And we need the Cubs need some of those teams to start losing. As far as third base goes, Eugenio Suarez is the obvious choice. I fear, a little bit with him because it's so much swing and miss, and he actually hasn't been very good this year against lefties, but he's been really good in his career. But the Diamondbacks are a game under 500. They're a game under 500, and it's like, they're a small market team. I definitely think they're going to trade Gallen, who's been better his last two starts. But, Kelly's thrown today 4 shutout innings. But I just think it's tough right now to just assume that they're going to sell. They're a game under. They're a few games out of the wild card, and they're the one team that won 84 games a couple years ago and made it all the way to the World Series. It seems like the Cubs are in a really good spot. They're ready to buy. They're ready, but nobody's ready to sell. And I just think that could be a real problem here. And I'm a little bit concerned about it, but I'm also understanding that you have to be patient and that it might take a couple of weeks. Some other third base, names that may pop up. The guy that we played today, Castro, of the Twins. He's more of a utility guy, Willie Castro, but we talked about him. He hits lefties. They're a team that probably should sell too, but the Cubs can help that by winning, these next 2 games. I just think Matt Shaw has proven enough or lack thereof that he is not ready to take this job by storm every day offensively. He just isn't. And, the hard contact, like there's nothing. And like, I love this kid. I'm not trying to get on him. It's not one of those shows. It's not like where I am with Dansby hitting with runners in scoring position where I just can't take it anymore. And I'm so frustrated. I'm not even frustrated at Dansby. I'm frustrated at Counsell. This one, I'm upset. I'm sad. I wanted it to be Matt Shaw, but this is what happens with young players. You have a young player like Pete that has risen to superstardom, and then you have a guy like Shaw who's not ready yet. Like that's why those guys are low floor, high ceiling guys. And one of them's worked out, and one of them hasn't. It's okay. Maybe next year Matt Shaw will be the guy to work that works out. But it's not the time right now. And this team has too much at stake. And this Brewers team, I know you guys are tired of hearing me say it. You're going to have to be really good at the trade deadline in order to pull away from this team, because I don't think they're going anywhere. They're really good, man. They're really good. Woodruff looked awesome on Sunday. Peralta's Peralta. They got Mizorowski, Chad Patrick, Quintana, Priester. They have a much, much better pitching rotation right now than the Cubs do right now. Cubs have a better offense. Brewers, in my opinion, have better stuff in the bullpen, more reliable stuff. Cubs have gotten the results, But those two teams, like I said this on a space last night with Cody from CHGO. You can make the case right now because we all know the Dodgers are going to be there at the end. We all know that. They're not healthy right now. They're missing Hernandez. They're missing Muncy. They're missing, I think Glasnow comes back Wednesday. They're missing Snell. They're missing Edman, whatever. You know they're separate. You know they're going to be there at the end. You take away the Dodgers and you say, who are the next teams? I know the Phillies are really good. I think the Cubs are really good. I think the Brewers are right there. And that's frustrating, but I think it's true. They're a really good team. And the Cubs are going to have to really find a way to win this deadline without giving up, the farm and rooting their future. It's going to be a tough thing for Jed, but it's a good problem to have, and they're going to have to figure it out because they're going to be in a dogfight. One of the guys that they may trade or may not trade that I think will probably be the biggest point of conversation internally for the Cubs at the trade deadline hit 2 more home runs on Tuesday night. We talk about him and some news and notes around the league coming up next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. FanDuel is doing it again. They're telling me that I need to be really nervous about this game Wednesday night. Right now, Cubs, Twins, Horton, Festa. Cubs and Twins minus 108 right now. Dead even. Cubs aren't even favored, which just that scares me a little bit. It just does, and I hope this time we're on the right side of it. If you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. We are back here on Locked On Cubs, and the Cubs have the hottest hitter on the planet right now. Unfortunately, he's not on the major league team. He's on the AAA team. Owen Casey has 7 home runs in his last 7 games, including 2 Tuesday night. This is a guy that has, we've heard this for a while now, just plus power, and he's showcasing it at the highest level right now, or I guess technically not at the highest level, but at the AAA level. And, you could say it's the right time for him to do that because he's raising his trade value. But, I think this guy's going to be a real point of contention for people. It's going to be very similar to the Cam Smith situation when the Cubs traded Kyle Tucker. I think if he gets traded, I think it's going to really upset a lot of people depending on what they get back. But I don't know how you can be a trade partner with the Cubs and say, hey, we know you're desperate. We know you need our pitcher or our third baseman, and we're not going to make a deal with you if Owen Casey's not in it. He's got 17 home runs on the year. It's such easy power for him. And I actually think he hit his 18th today. That could be wrong. I think it's his 18th home run. But he's been amazing. And I know people had a really hard time with the Cam Smith situation and are going to continue to have a hard time with that if the Cubs can't extend Kyle Tucker. But, in order to get a really good player, you got to give up one, or you got to at least give up somebody that could be one. And I do think that Owen Casey is very likely to be traded at the trade deadline if the Cubs are going to go, as everyone says, all in. We just have to make sure that they get somebody back that could help them win this division and go beyond. Speaking of go beyond, I thought it would be fun. I planned this before today's episode, so it's probably not as fun after the performance the Cubs just put out there. But I thought it could be fun to just do a little bit of hey, if the season ended today, what would be the Cubs situation? Who would they be playing? Let's just take a look around the National League. So believe it or not, if the season ended today, the Cubs would actually have a bye in the playoffs. Somehow, after losing 5 games in a row, the Dodgers would still be the number 1 seed. The Cubs would be the number 2 seed. Philadelphia would be the number 3 seed. And then it goes Mets, Brewers, and then Giants as we speak. Who knows? That could change tonight as I'm recording this. So what that would mean would be is the Cubs would get that very, very coveted bye. You want to try and avoid playing a 3-game series in the first round. It's great if you win, you have tons of momentum, you feel great, but you just rather not risk that. If they got that bye, they'd play the winner of the Phillies and Giants series, and the Dodgers would play the winner of the Mets and Brewers. I actually rather play the winner of the Phillies Giants than the Mets Brewers. Just me. This is going to change 10 times in the next, however many months, but just fun to talk about. But it got me thinking, when you look at Philadelphia, because I think Philadelphia would beat the Giants handily in a 3-game series actually think they're playing each other right now, but in Philadelphia. And it got me thinking, how will the Cubs match up with Philadelphia? And I immediately went, they got too many really good lefties. They got Ranger Suarez. They got Christopher Sanchez. They got Jesus Luzardo. That matchup, and then the righties, the other righty would be Zach Wheeler. That right there is reason number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 why you need to go and get some third base help to help those left-handed pitching to hit those guys. I mean, it's I don't know why I just described it. I made it sound like that was the hardest sentence in the world to get out, but you know what I'm trying to say. These guys in the playoffs in October, you're going to see some tough lefties. Now you got to get there first. By no means am I saying, you guys know, I respect the Brewers to the point where I think it actually frustrates a lot of you. So I'm not saying that this division's over or anything like that. I don't want to get aggregated and in 2 months be the guy, the Cubs are going to go to the playoffs before it could even happen. I know the Cubs got a lot of work to do, but in order to beat a team like Philadelphia, they're going to have to add another right-handed bat. They're just going to have to if they want to be in a playoff series. But it is kind of cool to know that if the season ended today, the Cubs would be in a bye position. It doesn't feel like that, but it's still really good stuff. So, in the American League, just to, entertain you, the Tigers have the best record in that league by a lot. And then you got the Astros, who are right there, which is just amazing the season they're having. And then the American League East is really, the Blue Jays have a 3-game lead. Everybody, including me, kind of raised an eyebrow when they extended Vlad Guerrero. It was like, man, remember, that's going to impact Tucker, and the Blue Jays aren't even that good. And, I think they're on like a 9-game winning streak and have a 3-game lead right now on the Yankees. That's one of the bigger stories, I would say, in all of baseball. So a lot of cluster, a lot of parity right now in baseball in the standings, which the good news is the Cubs are at the top of that for the most part. But the bad news is it makes trading for studs very, very difficult. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we can see some teams separate and some teams make some obvious decisions for their future to say, hey, you know what? We need to sell so the Cubs can improve this team, because if they want to get to where they want to go, they need to make some additions. Thank you so much for checking out this edition of Locked On Cubs. You give us 30 minutes and we'll give you all things Cubs with a laugh or two along the way. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube, smash the like button for the algorithm, and leave a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, and everywhere you get your podcasts. I'm Sam Olber, and this is Locked On Cubs.